I'd like to call the January 10th Budget Committee meeting for the school's public hearing to order at 7:10 with a roll call, please.
Betsy Colburn.
Brian Winslow.
Tom Chase.
Grace Mattern.
Betty Smith.
Hal Kreider.
Michael Moore.
Ted Wilkinson.
Brett Hall.
Linda Smith. Susan Austin.
Bob Young.
Beth Boudreaux.
And Ginger Dole. Excused this evening are Joe McCaffrey, Eric Buckland, and Mike Jobin. I've not heard from Dan McNally, so at this point he's unexcused. He may come in a little later, I don't know, but I've not heard from him, so. And I apologize for starting a little bit later tonight. I wasn't as organized as I thought I was going to be, so in any event, we'll get going. So this is the public hearing for the town for us to let the public know what the Budget Committee came up with for recommendations to go to school deliberative meeting. So we'll start off with the warrant. You guys all got a copy of the warrant this evening. So Article number 2 is the first one that we voted on. Shall the Northwood School District raise and appropriate as an operating budget, not including appropriations by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately, the amount set forth on the budget posted with the warrant or as amended by the vote of the first session, for the purposes set forth therein, totaling $11,443,583. Should this article be defeated, the default budget shall total $11,390,083, which is the same as last year with certain adjustments required by previous action of the Northwood School District or by law, or the governing body may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 40:13, sections 10 and 16, to take up the issue of a revised operating budget only. Operating budget warrant article does not include appropriations contained in any other warrant articles. The school board recommends this appropriation by a 5-0 vote. Budget committee recommends this appropriation by a 12-0 vote. Tax impact if this article passes is -4 cents. So we get a credit this year, not an addition. Tax impact, if the article does not pass, would be -14 cents per thousand. Are there any questions or comments from the public? Mr. Valancourt, come forward. Make sure the mic's on, or Gary will yell at you.
Jim Valancourt, 34 Cove Way. The mic's on? It is? No.
So the little button at the top.
Jim Valancourt, 34 Cove Way. Thank you. I have a comment to preface my one question.
Okay.
I understand that page 25 shows a deficit, the budget going backwards, $384,000.
I'm sorry.
It's less than last year by $384,000.
Okay,
That's what
yes.
page 25 says. For me, what sticks out is page 24, shows a negative $404,000 for tuition at Co-Brown. And that's the luck of the draw. That's not workable. The school board can work their tails off if they want, but they are not going to affect that number. That's how it is. And we knew that 8 years ago. We knew this was going to happen 8 years ago because we've been watching the mouse go through the snake. And it's in Co-Brown now, and it's left the elementary schools in Co-Brown, and it's going to be gone in a few years. And we're going to have, again, next year, a big page 24 negative number. There's about $9,000 in instructional development that was added into this budget. There's a huge expense in benefits in the principal's office. But pretty much this is an increase in the budget. Just a small one, but it is an increase. So I don't agree with page 25. So what then becomes important is my question, is that I spent a great deal of my time, personal time, on a committee with Mr. Chase, developing this document for our strategic planning for the school. And so I looked at the budget, trying to find how this might be implemented in this budget, and that is my question. What is in this budget that helps us move this strategic plan forward?
I'm going to have to defer to members of the school board. Brian, do you have some answers? Or feel free to call on your colleagues up above if necessary.
Sure. I mean, thank you. I'll start by saying we're appreciative of the work of the Strategic Planning Committee, and we review the goals of the strategic plan periodically as a school board. We are working to prepare a pretty detailed explanation for the deliberative session of where, specifically your question of where we can see guidance from that document in the budget. At this time, I don't have any specific concrete examples that I could offer. If anybody else does, I'd throw that up.
But you will at deliberative session?
We have planned, yes, we at our last school board meeting and before then, we've talked about the need to make the case to the public that we're following the strategic plan and that we're budgeting based on that, based on the recommendations from the strategic plan. And we are planning how we will present at the deliberative session.
Okay, cool. I'm patient. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions from the public regarding Article 2? Okay, moving on. Article 3. Shall the Northwood School District vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $480,000 for the construction and equipping of security-related improvements and renovations to the Northwood School, with $250,000 to come from new taxation, and the remaining amount to be offset by a $100,000 grant from the state of New Hampshire, $70,000 from the Building Capital Improvement Capital Reserve Fund, and $60,000 from the June 30th fund balance available for transfer on July 1st. This amount being the unexpended appropriation for a school resource officer in the FY 2019 school district operating budget that will lapse on June 30th, 2019. The school board recommends this appropriation by a 4-to-1 vote. Budget committee recommends this appropriation by a 10-to-2 vote. The tax impact, if this article passes, is 53 cents per thousand. Are there any questions or comments from the public? Mr. Valencourt? You might as well just stand right there. Why go
Oh,
back
he tried
and
to
forth?
put the mic back there so I wouldn't even have to move.
Bring it back to
It's sarcasm like that, you know, it keeps the public away.
You need the exercise, so don't worry.
And that's what I told him.
Yeah.
Thank you. So, do we have the grant? Is the grant a given?
Yes.
It is. Okay, and what's the balance of the capital improvement, capital reserve fund?
Do you have any of those numbers?
Somewhere in the vicinity of $100,000. Maybe 110.
It's more than 100,000.
It's around 100,000. Maybe a little more.
Want that number?
Oh, we have an exact number here.
Okay, and if we vote no on this, we lose the grant.
Correct.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, cool, thank you.
100,000.
Any other questions or comments regarding Article number 3? Okay, seeing none. Moving on to Article 4. Shall the Northwood School District approve the cost items included in the collective bargaining agreement reached between the Northwood Education Support Staff and the Northwood School Board covering the 3-year period from July 1, 2019 to June 30, 2022, which calls for the following increases in salaries and benefits at the current staffing levels over those paid in the prior fiscal year. Year 2019-2020, estimated increase $49,163. Year 2020 to 21, $45,786. Year 2021 to 2022, $42,032. and to further raise and appropriate the sum of $49,163 for the 2019-2020 fiscal year, such sum representing the additional costs attributed to the increase in salaries and benefits over those of the appropriation at current staffing levels paid in the prior fiscal year. School Board recommends this appropriation by a 5-0 vote. Budget Committee recommends this appropriation by a 12-0 vote. Tax impact if this article passes is 11 cents per thousand. Are there any questions or comments regarding Article number 4? Okay, seeing none. Article 5 is not one that the Budget Committee dealt with. Article 6. Shall the Northwood School District vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $66,777, which represents 80% of the total salary and benefits for the creation of a school resource officer position. This article is contingent on the passage of a warrant article at the Town of Northwood annual meeting that would raise and appropriate the remaining 20% and will be null and void unless that article is approved by the town. The school board recommends this appropriation by a 4-to-1 vote. Budget Committee recommends this appropriation by a 14-to-1 vote. Tax impact if this article passes is 14 cents per thousand. Are there any questions or comments? Mr. Valencourt.
This is my last one.
This is the last article.
I know. Don't get me with technicalities. This is my last question. This is a really hard one. I've never done this before, okay? I've been in town. I'm a newbie, okay? I've only been in town for 13 years, so I'm a newbie. But I've never had to vote on the town ballot, out on the school ballot, in order to get something done. I've never done that before. And I've taken it. Most of my neighbors haven't done that either. So the first question is, why is this not completely expensed on the school warrant article? Why ask the town for 20%?
Okay, part of that comes from the limited time that we would have the police officer from the year. So about 20% of their working career would be for the town, specifically in the summer months or on school vacations. The other part of that answer comes because of the way the retirement system is structured between school employees and state employees. And the police officers fall under a different retirement plan than school employees. So
Okay.
it has to essentially come through the police department and then to the, that the school would pay for 80% of it, but it would be employee of the police department, not of the school. And
It's very similar to how it's done with Co-Brown. Oh, it's not? I thought that that was the explanation that had been given to us previously.
No, Co-Brown is 100% and
No,
they...
but what I'm
it's the
saying
same
is,
thing.
it's the same thing in that it's a police officer, and Co-Brown is billed and they pay the town for the services. It's the same thing, he has to be a police officer employed by the town, so the town would bill the school for their 80% and then it would transfer over.
The thing that my neighbors and I are having trouble understanding is that we have the Co-Brown police officer. And that's not, the town doesn't pay for 20% of that one, right?
That's because the Co-Brown police officer is an employee of through the town, but employed by by the Co-Brown Academy, which serves more than just the residents of Northwood. It's then a decision in their school budget that they've decided to make.
She doesn't work in the summer months. That 20% is summers and vacations,
So why not structure this position that way?
so that the person would be full-time year-round.
Right, if I may, it's hard to find a part-time police officer. I mean, I think Co-Brown is in a good situation where they have one, but it's not really reasonable to expect that somebody's going to want to come to town and be employed by us for only 80% pay and, you know, the loss of benefits and stuff that goes along with that. So it's that based, and also the fact that the police department would like to have an extra officer for the extra time. So that's why we structured it this way.
Well, so then, yeah, okay, I hear that, but then I go and look and ask last night about why did the Board of Selectmen unanimously vote it down? I said, why did you do that? Well, because we didn't think it was necessary. That was their answer. So
guess
I
can
have a
speak
hard
for them.
time, I have a hard time hearing you tell me that this town wants the other 20% of the police officer.
I think the difference is the police department wants it. The selectmen said no. So when you refer to the town, you're referring to the Board of Selectmen who made the decision whether to approve or not approve that particular article. The police department definitely would like this to go through. And I happened to attend a selectmen's meeting where the presentation was made to them. And the police department is definitely in favor of doing this. They helped bring it to the selectmen's attention.
Okay.
The selectmen chose not to support it.
All right. The other question that has been asked of me is, do they pay the fourth grade teacher that my wife volunteers to 80%?
No, teachers work on, their teacher contract is a full year contract, though the teaching calendar usually doesn't begin until the end of August with professional development days. It runs July 1st through the next year, June 30th, and it's a year-long salaried contract. So, but in that, under that contract, teachers are scheduled to work so many days, like 180 teaching days, plus however many professional development days. So if a teacher misses, say, 1 day without pay, they would, and they'd be prorated minus 1 out of 185, not 1 out of 365, if that makes sense.
So why not structure this position that way?
Thank you, 187. I guess it could have been an option, but as we were talking with Chief Droulet, this is what his advice to us was based on the availability in the workforce and what we felt we, wanting to be able to fill the position, what he felt we needed to be able to do.
Okay, cool. Thank you very much.
Welcome. Are there any other questions or comments regarding Article number 6? Okay. Seeing none, I do want to back up just a moment. And for our record, we have a number of school personnel here. If, for our minutes, if you could please identify yourselves. Do you have a mic up there? Please, you can pass them around.
Dave Ruth.
Keith McGuigan, School Board.
Amy Hannafin, School Board.
Jocelyn Young, Principal.
Bob O'Sullivan, Business Administrator, SAU 44.
Nate Byrne, Director of Student Services, SAU 44.
Thank you. I'll make sure you get the names in. Okay, let's see. Everybody has their warrant. We're going to start passing around the signature page for the school's warrant. Now, there are 2 pages, because the school does things just a tad differently than what the town does. So there are 2 signature pages. They're both going around at the same time. So just sign them and keep passing them along.
You sign both?
Yes, you sign both.
Okay. With a special pen.
Yeah,
With the special pen that I'm sending around. And I better get it back at the end of it. We had the discussion about the special pen last night. I'm sorry. Did you? We still need to review.
What have you done? I'm untwisting. I'm just untwisting.
Last night, finance left.
No, it slipped through the cracks. They're going to put me in jail. We'll come visit you. Thank you. Bring candy. Dark chocolate.
Well, candy would be a little bit, are you sure you don't want a chocolate cake? Candy would be a little small to,
You gotta sneak a nail file in.
Thank Ginger, come on.
I'm too tired.
How come we don't have dark chocolate at these meetings?
I'll bring
I
them.
thought I was the only one that liked dark chocolate.
I like dark chocolate.
Let's take a poll.
Let's take a poll while we're passing it. Who likes dark chocolate?
I'll bring some next time.
Okay, so the 2-pound Hershey's Kiss that we were given for Christmas is not something that you guys would break up and...
I'll bring the Trader Joe's one.
Is that milk chocolate though?
That's milk chocolate.
I didn't want to think of.
Yeah, that's milk chocolate.
Ooh, my turn? Where's the pen?
Jeez. Oh my gosh.
Done.
Violation of protocol here.
Mr. Chase.
While this is being passed around, I want to make a note that when I attended the meeting on Tuesday night before to discuss the safety complex, and I normally could stay until 7 o'clock, one of the last things on the screen was a copy of the bond schedule. I think that's what this is called. From year 1 through year 20, with the, most importantly to me, the diminishing tax rate impact over those 20 years. And I asked Scott about it last night, and he said that Chief Drolla had it, and Chief Drolla was kind enough to send me a copy. So if any of you are interested in that document to see how the tax rate diminishes over time, I'd be happy to ask Linda to make copies if you would care to. The other thing that I think is most important for us as a budget committee to know is if they don't spend the contingencies, the $400,000 in construction and the $400,000 in the town, and if they get some grant monies that have been talked about, which I think amount to $400,000, and just to make the math easy, that bumps you from the first year of $975,000 down to the fourth year, which is $575,000, plus or minus, and it gets you from $1.18 on the tax rate down to $1.06. So you are 4 years into the bond already. So if anybody wants that, Linda, I'm sure, could, in her spare time, make copies.
And just to build on that a little bit, one of the points that would be beneficial to, I think, to a lot of people that have concerns about the cost of that complex, when you're looking at the $1.18 and they're figuring, okay, and my assessment is this much or whatever, remind them that whatever that increase is divided by 2 tax bills. So it's not that full amount on twice a year, it's half of it twice a year, which can make a significant difference, perhaps in thinking of their budget.
Speaking of tax impacts, last night I noticed on the various warrant articles that was one item that was an $1,800,000 increase whose estimated tax impact was 3 cents. And I looked at another item where it was a $17,000 expenditure when the tax impact was 4 cents. And so I asked Sandy, like, why is the $18,000 less than the $17,000, and why are apples and oranges? And she said, I didn't do the tax impact calculations, but I'll get back to you. So if I learn more about why those figures are slightly askew, I'll let you know. The reason I think that's important is that every time I find an error in these documents, and last night it was a $500,000 figure that was left off of the anticipated cost of the safety complex, I think it ruins our credibility. So if you're going to talk to the townspeople about these things, and they can point out these small, and in this case probably pretty inconsequential error, I don't think it helps us present information to the people. I'm sure the school has no problems like that.
All right, I can speak to how that can happen.
Yeah, well,
I'll defer to the chair as to whether she wishes to learn
scrap paper.
reviews on
If you would like to enlighten us, that would be wonderful.
Having experienced the same challenge in doing
Oh, yeah.
Experiencing the same thing in doing the budgets for the schools. The programs are rounding off, so potentially in this case, it's, you say it's 13, or I forgot the exact numbers that
one
you...
was 18, one was 17, the
Could have been-
18 was 3, the 17 was 4, and I'm saying, like, how'd you get there?
These programs, unfortunately, as you get very close to a rounding, that's what you may be seeing, and it makes it look like the person doing the work didn't know what they're doing, but it's really potentially an artifact of software rounding numbers that, if you took it out to several more decimal places, might...
Is it still the mathematical convention? It's been many years since I took mathematics. But I think it's still the convention, it's 5 and up, and you raise the previous number, it's 4 and below.
Typically, that's how the programs will work, right?
Glad math hasn't changed.
We have a couple pieces of paper that I haven't seen before on the Northwood school security assessment. I'm assuming the redacted stuff is security things that are being added?
Yeah, there were some, you remember when we first got our presentation on the Saturday when we met? They didn't go into
They didn't
a
even show
lot
us the
of
plans.
right, because there are some security plans that can't. It would be inappropriate to be discussing. Oh yeah, we're going to do this and we
Candy camera.
on camera. Right. It's up to you. Please, thank you.
So yes, you have two documents. One is the aggregate costs of the construction, and then the soft costs. There are some things redacted on that. And then the other sheet with more is the disaggregated construction costs. So without getting too specific, we're looking at increasing the security of the building, making one primary entrance, hardening that entrance, so that we're reducing interaction between visitors who have not yet checked in and students.
I've already lost it. That paper, I've already lost it. It's around here somewhere.
Madam Chair. We've got, this is the amended December 12th minutes.
Right, but we're not finished with the public session yet. And we will be discussing that. That's one, but there's only one. So we have one. There are two of them. Oh, we got them both? Oh.
I'm sorry.
Oh.
I was expecting two to come in.
Thank you. Okay, terrific. And I have my special pen.
I was going to take it.
I know, but everybody wants my pen.
It's a nice pen.
Okay, so it writes well. The next thing that we need to review, which I remembered after last night, is the default budget for the school. Brian, you'd like to start that, and I know Bob had indicated that if there are any additional questions, he'd be happy to.
Like me to go just section by section? Or?
We can do an overall, I think, and just generalize.
The overall default budget, grand total, on page 33 of 33, is $11,390,082.97. This, I believe, is a decrease from the previous year, $440,343.03. That's the overall.
The reason that you're reviewing the default budget this evening, and typically we don't review it, or we haven't reviewed it in the past, it is what it is, and to a certain extent, that's still the case. It's not something that the public can make any changes to or whatever, but you'll probably notice a lot more detail on specific lines. Those of us who have looked at default budgets in the past, state laws changed last year, and there were new requirements that the legislature came up with as far as both how lines were to be computed for the default budget, as well as adding the additional explanations. And I'm going to turn it over to our business administrator at this point. Should any of you have any specific questions regarding the default budget? Grace?
Why did we get a second one?
What's the date?
Change the numbers.
The numbers did change? It went from 12/7 to 12/11.
The date of the document?
Yes.
It just probably didn't change, we just printed it again.
I believe when I spoke with Scott, he was planning on printing off a number of them, not knowing how many public we would have here, and whatever did not get used tonight, they would be utilizing for the deliberative session.
Okay.
So I think it was just a process of handing them out in case our budget members didn't bring their books tonight. You'd have something to look at. So
We just
if that's
compared
not
the
one that you
final
need,
number.
you can put it back on the pile and,
I don't even know how I got it.
oh, it got handed out before you got here, I think.
Okay.
What's the date in the bottom left corner of that?
It's 12/11.
You don't want to put that one over there.
Put that one over there.
Those are, no, those are 1/8 over there.
Those are what?
1/8.
Yeah, I think I got this in the mail.
You may have. That may, because they did send out the proposed operating budget as well as the proposed default budget.
Yes. But this is, okay.
The figures are the
So I
same.
didn't get, I don't think I got that.
Oh, well, there you go.
I'll look at the bottom line. If it's the same, you can have this. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Just trying to keep up with all the paper.
I'll just make one statement I probably should have mentioned. Just about every line has a note under it with respect to the section of the law that states it has to be there, or what the previous budget was and how that number was determined. With the exception of the zeroed out numbers, there's no note there, they're just zeroed out.
Are there any other questions or comments from either Budget Committee or our public? No, Mike is still here. He's just very quiet back
hiding
there.
behind
He's
him.
hiding, yes. Okay. Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing and go into work session at 7:40, whatever it is.
Hey, Ginger, just a comment for the folks in the school board. I think Tom's point was a good one, because I'm looking at some of the other numbers, and like, this document has an estimate of a 3-cent decrease as opposed to the 4-cent decrease published. And I think Tom's right. It's only a penny, but it just raises people's questions, and if you can clean all those up.
Updated one and get rid of the rest of them.
No, this is on a different document. This is on the revenue and tax document. So just, you know, as best you can. Yeah.
There were a number of new laws passed this year, especially related to the default budget, and so we had to change things around.
I'm not talking about the
Oh, we're talking about the proposed budget. All right.
Yeah, just,
Yeah.
I mean, just try to get everything in sync. It's, I mean, when the people come and ask those kinds of questions, it doesn't let them focus on the real issues. It's like a red herring almost. Because, like I said, it's only a penny, but people bring it up and it just like drives the conversation off to the left. So please.
Something to just double check. Thank you folks very much.
Thank you. What are we doing?
That's me run down. 443. 583. Well, I want to find out. That's the number
How to set up and all those
here.
things. I know everything, but
I believe that is a typo.
Okay, and we have the new sound system now, so that's cool.
Because that's the new one.
I thought we were singing.
Oh, that's right, yes. Okay, you got me on that one.
11, right, 11,443 in budgets. Wait a minute. Yeah. 11,443, 582 is correct. That's that in the minutes is a typo, so that has to be corrected.
We'll do the minutes.
When we do the minutes.
We're still in session, right? We think so. We are.
La 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 la.
Have another meeting just to do
I
minutes?
hate to,
Interest is a killer. It was too much of a temptation.
how are we going to do that?
You're right, it was.
Okay, we are into work session, and we received corrected minutes for December 12th.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the minutes of December 12th as amended. So, are you ready for that?
Second.
All right, and Grace? Okay, so we've got a motion.
No, that was me.
That was
Oh,
Betty.
sorry, Betty.
Come on.
It was a voice from inside. All right, so Tom made the motion and Betty seconded. And I have discovered we do have one additional typo. No, it's correcting a number. Article 2, page 1 of the minutes. 11,443,184 is supposed to be 11,443,583. That's the amount that's on the warrant. That's the amount that's in the operating budget. I'm not sure where the 184 came from versus the 583, but the 583 is what we voted on. That is the correct amount, so we need the minutes to reflect that.
Would you read that number again?
Yes, it's the 11,443,583.
Thank you.
The default budget number is correct.
There is another mistake.
Where is the other mistook?
On page 3, they missed, one of the lists, they missed taking Brian off the bottom.
Oh, yep.
I got that.
Yes, Brian, you were
They
getting
love
2
you.
votes every time.
Yeah,
I gave him my vote because I couldn't be there.
proxy. He's your proxy.
The count is correct, but the...
Thank you.
This was supposed to be spelled out.
Anyone notice anything else? Okay, seeing none, we have a motion and a second to accept the minutes of December 12th as amended, which includes those 2. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, so we are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 11 to 1.
No,
No, 1101.
Thank you.
Anytime.
Glad you guys are keeping me straight and narrow here. They want the pen. The pen doesn't go with the position. The pen goes with the body.
I noticed everybody from the school was eyeing them too. They don't get those kind of pens at school.
We don't know.
I don't get these kind at work either, so. Okay, we need to, we talked last night about the fact that we've got 7 open positions coming up for elections, which is roughly half of this committee. So the question came up as to whether or not we should have a very short meeting in the near future, perhaps a week or 2 from now, to review and accept the minutes from tonight and last night before elections. In case all of the 7 that are up turn out to be completely different people.
Not a bad idea. I thought you were going to say, we're going to have like a little cocktail reception to try to recruit people.
That too.
Yeah, maybe too.
I support doing that very briefly, and hopefully we can get a quorum.
You 2 gentlemen planning on supplying all of the refreshments for this?
I'll supply the dark chocolate.
Yes, apply the pens.
Do you have a date in mind?
I don't.
Linda, you got a date in mind?
Well, this was something that I hadn't even had a chance to discuss with Linda
Linda's
yet.
so Johnny on the spot.
The other date that we need to discuss is the date for the reorganization meeting after elections.
We'd have a meeting just for minutes.
You want a minute meeting?
A minute?
It would be a minute meeting. I'm figuring it shouldn't take more than...
Are you in a position to mail out these minutes before we get here so that we don't have...
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. They would be mailed
Amen,
out.
right, Susan?
What works for you, getting them all done?
They'll be, I mean, how, okay.
Couple of weeks.
So like
You
next
know
week,
what your other...
I could mail them out next week.
Are you sure? Those meetings last night was fairly long and...
Well, the issue is more for
It's
her
not
to have
about-
time to review them
Yeah,
before they
that's-
go out.
That's what I mean.
Gotta
I-
have them done.
We have the luxury of time, as long as it's being...
Not in January.
No, no, no.
Voter guide, we have all kinds of things, and we do not have a, we have
So,
an interim town
I have a
administrator
thought.
who's a full-time finance
We have a
director.
5th Wednesday and a
We got a
5th
lot
Thursday.
going on.
Shouldn't conflict with anything else.
Can we plan this in February?
I think we can do this in February, in my mind, as long as it's before elections.
What day is election?
March,
12.
12th.
Oh, okay. Guys, what about February
Which day?
the 6th? That's the first Wednesday in February. Don't you usually like Wednesdays? I mean,
I never know what other committees
Well,
have town hall
Wednesdays,
connect.
generally nobody here
yeah, that's.
Oh,
in this
okay.
room.
Well, Rick would be here, but
They
no
always
one
meet
yet,
in
so.
the other, they've been willing to meet in the.
And there'd be.
They won't be in right now anyway. So.
Okay, so if we went with February 6th, that would give you adequate time to be able to complete them and send them out, as long as we can get them the week before.
Yeah, I could mail them out like the week of the 21st.
Are you saying Wednesday the 5th?
Wednesday, the 6th of February.
Correct, okay.
Just a
Seven?
note, Thursday the 7th is the school
Is the
deliberative
school
session.
deliberative session.
Great
Right.
idea.
Yeah, you're gonna wanna come out 2 nights.
What, 2 nights back to back?
Not
Seems
really.
like we just did
You
that.
go the
I
week
did
before, you have
3.
5th Wednesday and a 5th
But that's
Thursday.
Yeah, the end of January.
that's cutting them too close. They could still.
How about the 13th of February?
Day before Valentine's Day.
We have to
Be
We
prepared.
do big things for Valentine's
Definitely.
Day.
Bring dark chocolate in the shape of hearts.
Yeah.
You gotta press.
7,000 musicians down in Boston.
I lost track of why we're scheduling 2 meetings.
Just one.
One to just do the minutes.
Yeah.
The second one is in April, after elections, to
Oh,
have
we're
the
not- okay.
reorganization. It's just easier to schedule it before we, because
Okay.
after this, we're done until after elections.
Yeah, I thought you had picked the 6th of February.
Well, there was some discussion from some people, do you want to be
I
out
wouldn't
2
be able
nights
to
in a
come.
row?
Why don't we do the 6th and then have the following Wednesday as a snow date?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
It is.
There we go. There
And
we
to
go.
think I thought of
That's
it.
the way, yeah, that's the way to do it.
Yeah.
What's on Tuesday the 5th? Anything?
Conservation.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We
conservation.
don't have war for that.
High
do we?
five.
Doesn't that typically meet on
It's the lunar new
Oh,
year.
January 30th.
Which day? The 6th?
It's also Chinese New Year.
That's what I was trying to push, was
It's-
the 5th week of
it's-
the month.
Too quick.
They've got too much that they're trying to get accomplished.
If you need Scott here, he's not here that week, the first week of February.
That'd be nice.
Then
Then you're
you
good.
or DJ would be,
Yeah, I'm just saying.
which will work good because you were here for tonight.
Yeah, I was.
You could vote for it.
What are we doing?
Thanks for that.
6th.
So we're going for the 6th?
With the snow day.
All right, let's go for the 6th.
7 o'clock?
And 7 o'clock, and I anticipate it's going to be very short.
And no snow.
Probably rain.
Never is when you say that.
February and
Is last night's meeting the only minutes we're going to have to go over?
And tonight.
And tonight?
Last night, tonight.
These two.
There's another set.
the 3rd.
No, didn't we get,
No, we haven't done the 3rd.
oh, we haven't. All right, so there's 3 sets then.
When you mail it up, can you mail me a set? Because I know Scott will keep it. Okay.
Yeah, all 3 of
So
them.
those will come out in the mail to us a week or so before. Review them, make your notes. The more notes you have or whatever, the faster we can come in and, you know. So moving on to April.
Wait, if you see little granny things, it's okay to tell me about that before.
Okay. Okay. So the reason for the meeting in April is twofold. Number one, it's our reorganization meeting, but it's also to review the first quarter of the town's budget and the third quarter of the school's budget. So that being said, we've traditionally tried to get it the middle of April. We have not had the pushback in the last year or so with having to wait until after the school board's second meeting so that they can review their financial statement before we get a chance to review it. All it is based on what has been paid up to that date
It's a printout,
when
it's just-
it's run.
I would
So
note that
what-
the school vacation is the week of April 21 through 26.
So I would want to do it before then.
Good.
Absolutely.
I'd also note that the Northwood Democrats' monthly meeting is on Wednesday night, the 17th, which will take up my time and that of some other people who shall remain unnamed.
That's good, to remain unnamed. What's available the week of the 8th?
If we have it that night,
That's
it'll be a
too
shorter
soon,
meeting.
Ginger.
Tom won't be
By the
here.
time they mail them out, we're gonna have to go the week of 15th.
On the other hand,
Think
that
so?
speed things up.
I'm sorry, what night is that meeting, Mr. Chase?
The 17th.
17th, okay. Is there any availability, Linda, for the hall the week of the 15th, other than Wednesday?
The Tuesday night is police commission.
They meet at night now?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Is what?
Police commission.
Could they meet in the basement as the
Well, that's at 5,
Conservation
isn't it,
Commission
though?
so often is required to do?
They're at 5.
That's fine, as long as you,
We can't, they won't be done by 7?
they may be.
But you have to be down at the police commission.
But still, I,
What the new person doing the budget will
Yeah, well, because it's a reorganization meeting, Linda, as our board administrator,
Sounds good.
does the initial nominations for chair and vice
Want to
chair,
get
that
it all
kind of
over in
thing.
one night, Linda?
oh, that's fine.
Yes, the 16th.
Let's go with that.
Okay, so we'll
I'm
go
just saying,
with,
if the chief has procedures he's going over, it could get close, but it's very unlikely.
okay,
Usually they last about a half an hour, 45 minutes.
all right. So we'll go with April 16th at 7 o'clock.
Say that again, 16th?
April 16th. Day after tax day.
What time was on the 6th, 7 o'clock as well?
Yes. Yeah, we usually
7.
start our meetings at 7 unless there's some urgent need to start a little earlier.
And the other one is the 6th.
So that being said, the town and school need to mail their quarterlies out to us by the 5th of April to make sure that we've got them.
Right.
Can I make a comment about the town? But in the past, it's my understanding that the request from the budget committee is for the most recent print off of the school budget, and there's been a request from the budget office to do the most recent budget that's been vetted through the school board and through the business administration's office. So occasionally we have issues with like encumbrances and things like that that haven't been corrected, and those questions have come up at the last few quarterly meetings. It's been suggested to me that if the budget committee would be willing to work with the last vetted copy of the budget, which perhaps would be up to a week and a half to 2 weeks older than the most recent runoff, that those kinds of issues would have been vetted and would be eliminated.
Can I just add to that? I
Sure.
believe Scott had said he wanted all the encumbrances cleaned up before the 1st of April. You guys would be meeting on the 4th, and then you could mail it out the 5th. If we go with the last one you approved, then it's 5 weeks old before we even act on it, which is too much.
Right.
It's not a financial statement, it's just a print off
It's
of what the
just
system has on that day that they print it.
Right.
So it's nothing in stone, basically.
I would also say that encumbrances get more and more important the later in the year you get. So if there's a little slop in the system in the first quarter report, not as important as it is in the last quarter report. Is that true?
Right, well,
It'd be pretty tight from April on.
right, things,
So I'd rather go with newer with a few errors than go with older.
I mean, if they know now that they've got to look at it on Thursday the 4th as part of that meeting, they got plenty of notice. Because otherwise it's 5 or 6 weeks old. And it's not really worth going over at that point.
well, March meetings for the school board would be the 7th and the 21st, correct? Right.
Yeah.
So you're a week shy of the end of March. And remember, we've been trying to do as close to quarterly as we could. What's the feeling from the committee?
If you go with the last one that they do, it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks old before we even act on it, which will be totally different. And it won't be the end of the quarter either.
It'll be a week shy of the end of the quarter.
If we were to
No,
get,
because they printed off the week before that to go to them to look at. So it's 2 weeks shy of the end of the quarter.
if we were to get the same one that the school board gets for their meeting, then Brian can bring in any things that showed up at the meeting.
But it's not the end of the quarter, it's 2 weeks shy.
But I'm saying the one that he's talking about, the April meeting.
No, the April meeting is not, their meeting in April is not until the 18th.
Right.
They don't count the
I see.
7
All right,
to 10 day
right.
window there.
Right.
They review their financial status at their second meeting of the month. They don't do it at each meeting.
Just, if you go with everybody's deadlines and everything, it just pushes it out. And it's like 4 weeks old. And then there's no sense to go over it.
Again,
Yeah.
thoughts
So-
from the committee.
So it sounds like the choice is between old data and current data, which might have some adjustments, pretty much solely due to the encumbrances. Is that correct, Brian?
Well, most of the questions that I haven't been able to answer at the last 2 quarterly meetings were easily answerable by the business administrator and the superintendent as they vetted, and they saw around encumbrances and specifically, it's like a manual process with the program that they have, and they update their encumbrances and cross-reference every so often in order to present to the school board. And if it's been expressed to me that if the budget committee would work with that most recent vetted copy, a lot of these questions would not come up because they would have had a chance to vet it and present it. But again, I mean, it's the will. I don't mind taking these questions and getting it to people. It doesn't seem like an impossible task or something, but at times things come up that I don't have answers to that wouldn't even come up if we were to accept this most recent vetted copy. That's my understanding.
Yeah.
We don't do this for the town. We ask for it printed at the end of the quarter, and we deal with it. And encumbrances should be adjusted ongoing, and by certainly April, they should be pretty well tweaked.
I have a suggestion to offer in the interest of time. If it's acceptable to the rest of the members, I will go ahead and speak with the superintendent, the school board chair, and see if we can come to a meeting of the minds or what have you, and just point out where we're coming from, which might make it a little easier than just Brian going back and saying, yeah, they want it.
We've done that before, though.
I understand that, and we have different players now, which is why I think it's worth revisiting with them.
Okay, so whose meeting is this? If we're going with stuff that's 4 weeks old, and then the selectmen want to go with something that's 4 weeks old, why do we even bother to meet?
I'm going to, if the committee is agreeable with this,
information.
I will speak with the superintendent and the school board chair and see if I can't get them to agree to the time frame that we're looking at that matches the town. I'm not sure what else to do. I'm not 100% comfortable with saying, you do it our way, because that's what we want. I suppose legally we could do that, but I like working with people and not.
Having run that system for a number of years, all they have to do is push a button on a certain date, it spits it out, and it's done. They don't have to sit and do anything with it.
But they feel they do, Betsy. We've gone through this before. They feel that they want to review it before the budget committee reviews it. And that's been a hang-up.
They can on April 4th, and mail it out to us on the 5th. Yes,
Please, Brian.
Could we authorize the chair to speak with the superintendent about this issue and then discuss again at our February minutes meeting? Because then we'll have more information.
We could do that.
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
And it'll give us all time to think about it.
It's the kicking the can down the road.
Madam Chair, if I could,
Yes.
yeah, but this doesn't involve,
Linda?
add a comment.
Hands.
Please,
Just a different
Dangerous
spin on this.
staircases.
Guys, people sleeping with fumes.
please,
A different spin on this.
please.
I understand the interest of the Budget Committee to review the numbers, but the numbers reflect spent money. There's nothing you can do regarding spent money. It's only for the sake of reviewing for future understanding. So, a lot of discussion relative to whether it was 2 weeks ago spent money, or last week spent money, or a month ago spent money. It's all still the same. And most budget committees do not meet to discuss spent money. Northwood
And
is
what do they
unique
do
in that
for it?
regard.
Do they, in your
They
experience?
distribute the budgets every so often from several towns of people
Like
that
the
have spoken.
financial,
Yeah,
current financial status and whatever?
and then people review it. I mean, you can't, that's all you can do. It's
Oh, it is
spent
just a
money.
review. There's nothing we can tell them to do with their money any
It's
more
a
than we
different
tell them with the town.
perspective, rather than spending a lot of time, and
Well, if we're
but
gonna
the school
review
board
something
can
that's-
send whatever they want. They can say we're not going to send it at all. They're under no obligation
Per RSA, that's correct.
for state law. The
Yep.
only
Then
thing
why do
this
we need
budget
quarterly?
committee is required by law is to create a budget.
And
Why
if
do
this-
we need quarterly then?
Well, I guess you'd have to answer that. I can't.
Let me ask one other question.
Certainly have.
Is there an option to wait and meet until after the 18th so that we get the the full quarter in and they have a chance to review it? Or are we trying to tether it to our what do you call it, reorganization meeting?
We need to reorganize as soon after election
Reasonable.
as is reasonable. And one meeting to do it all
Is
has
preferred.
always made more sense as opposed to having a meeting just to elect a chair and vice chair and go home. And then have another meeting to review
Yeah.
operating budgets, so. Grace?
I guess, following up on what Linda said, and that other budget committees don't meet to review the budget, I guess I don't understand what the problem is in reviewing numbers that are a few weeks old.
4 or
Is
5
it-
weeks old? It's all changed. You saw paperwork that we got for this whole process changes. They don't change anything when they look at it. Nothing changes. It's the print off of where it's at the time.
Yeah, I
Same with
guess
the
I'm
town.
just, if what we're doing is reviewing, and I can see as you get towards the end of the school year, you might have more interest
Well,
in what's
really,
coming
April
in.
1st is, you want things tweaked by then anyway, so you have an idea where you're at before the end of the year.
School year's ends June 30th,
June 30th, yeah.
so this is the third quarter.
And what date? I'll go back to Brian's suggestion. I'll think about it.
The reality is that this budget committee really has no authority to tweak the budget. The only ones
Correct.
that tweak the budget are the
Tweaking
school
budget,
board.
we're just getting something that's fairly current. Which the only difference is the day they push the button on it, and the numbers change. It's not like they're putting together a financial statement, because they're not.
Bob,
No, it's
I
an
remember
expenditure
going back,
report.
and this is going back to the late 80s. There had been discrepancies. I mean, there had been the town and the school at odds in terms of budgets. And I believe there was a couple of situations of where the administrative secretary at the time of the town was concerned that the school wasn't coming through with the correct budget. And so I believe it was around that time that they decided that the budget committee was going to start reviewing to
Okay.
make sure that the school had their paperwork done and that the town had their paperwork done. And I think we're just continuing on with something that goes back 30 some odd years.
So the budget committee caught some problems that were happening.
Yes.
And how
Or
the
at least
budget.
it's just in the old days, a lot of this stuff, we didn't get computerized until
Yeah.
much later than
Yeah,
that.
that makes
The
sense.
computer has made a very big difference from the in and out ledger type of things that were done in the past. And in the past, there was always a concern about the town having sufficient money to make the payments to the school that were necessary to make budget. So, I mean, I'd have to go back, but my memory seems to suggest that that was one of the things that contributed to looking at the quarters, was just that there were financial issues back.
I can remember during those budget meetings when Helen Sherman would come out of
Absolutely.
the office with a sheaf of papers thick enough to choke a horse. All of these people haven't paid their taxes. What are you doing? Oh yeah, pretty much every meeting. She was a love. She was a love. I liked Helen. Okay, so what's the will of the committee?
I say we send a delegate.
I am willing to be that delegate if the committee would like me to do that.
I would
So
like
moved.
you to, yes.
All right. We'll do that, and I will report back to you when we meet on February 6th
Thank you.
to review the minutes, and we'll go from there. Okay?
We need to vote on that.
You said so moved, aye.
Okay,
There's
so
a motion
Tom
and a second.
came up with the idea.
But you're going to give him the motion when I said so moved? Holy mackerel.
Because he brought it up to begin with.
Yeah,
You want to be the second?
No, I'll give it to Tom. Give it to Tom. I'll just go home and cry.
What is the actual
He seems so proud over there.
To authorize the chair to speak with the superintendent and school board regarding the dates for the quarterly statement. This is one way to put it.
So, what are you going to do when you review the one?
Betsy, there's a motion on the floor.
already voted.
Got a
You, I
discussion.
don't think you're speaking to the motion.
No, we've already voted.
I don't know about the timing of their expenditure reports.
Right.
Speaking to the chair.
Try to make the motion again.
All right, is there any further discussion regarding the motion for authorizing me to speak to this school personnel about the quarterly statements?
Move the question.
That requires a vote.
That requires a vote. Withdraw.
Somebody second it.
All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Yes.
Thank you.
Anything else?
11:01. No, we've got our meeting set for the 6th
6th, snow date 13th.
and the 16th of April
Yep.
for reorganization.
Yep.
We'll have the minutes sent to us in the mail so that we can review those before the meeting on the 6th, so that hopefully that meeting will be very short.
All 3 sets.
All 3 sets.
Even though we
January,
might have had a copy in advance of the one, all 3, just so we don't get them goofed.
No, you don't have
Oh,
we
have
we
any?
don't have the ones for January 3rd.
Oh, we don't have that one either? No. Oh, that's right. yeah.
So it'll be January 3rd, January 9th, and January 10th.
Yeah. Okay,
Okay.
good.
And before anybody says they'd like to make a motion to adjourn, I'd like to thank the chair for her work in leading this committee
Yep.
through this
Good job.
process another year. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I would like to thank everyone for returning my pen. It's the little things in life, you know.
Yep.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Can sit here by yourself.